What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Magic the Conversation. This week we will be going over the Invasion set. The Invasion set is Magic's 21st set, and it came out in October of the year 2000. The expansion symbol is a coalition shield. It's basically the 5 colors of Magic overall banding together to stop the Phyrexian invasion, and the Phyrexians are signified by the tiny segment up above, because now Phyrexia is launching a full-scale invasion on the plane of Dominaria. This is where everything that we've seen up until now is back to the present. Urza, Gerard, the crew of the Weatherlight, the Tolarian Academy, they're all just fighting for their lives as they combat the Phyrexian threat. And as a reminder, the Phyrexians are hell-bent on pretty much, they view flesh as weak, and they want to convert all living organisms into artificial beings because they believe that mortality is a weakness. And they want to become immortal. Kind of like, if any of you are familiar with Star Trek, they're essentially like the Borg. There's a lot of cards in this set. The Invasion set is the first of the Invasion block because there's 2 more sets after this. A lot happens major story-wise in all 3 sets. So rather than go over what does happen before revealing the cards, I will try to tell the story as the cards are revealed. So without further ado, we will begin with Absorb. The 3-mana counter target spell, you gain 3 life. Your Presumption is your downfall. So it's like Counterspell for 2 blue, and then a Healing Salve on top of it for the white. Good for control back in the day. I think Absorb did get reprinted in Ravnica later on. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention some reoccurring themes in the Invasion set. This was heavy on multicolored cards. A lot of gold cards are in this set. And 2 to 3 colors matter in this. And players are rewarded for the more colors they play. We'll see that represented on the cards as they show up. Next is Addle. Choose a color, look at target player's hand, and choose a card of that color from it. That player discards that card. I'll wring out your tiny mind like a sponge. Urborg Witch. Good against monocolors. Actually, it's just good in general. 2 mana, you get to look at opponent's hand and discard any card. Most cheap discard spells have some sort of drawback, like Duress only forces the opponent to discard a non-creature, non-land card. Aether Rift. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card at random from your hand. If you discard a creature card in this way, put that card onto the battlefield unless any player pays 5 life. This is it's a random card. I say that because it's you don't get to choose what card you discard. You discard at random, but you can kind of put the odds in your favor by building your deck around this. Just don't play any of your big creatures, and then play the Rift, and then each turn you just discard one of those big creatures. And the opponent either will deal with that creature or pay 5 life. And 5 life is like a fourth of their starting life total, so it's a decent card. Cool card for back in the day. Aggressive Urge. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you draw a card. The power of the wild concentrated in a single charge. It's just a little combat trick. Agonizing Demise. Looks like, I don't know if this elf got hit with a toxic arrow. I do see arrows on the battlefield. but he is wasting away. Destroy target non-black creature. It cannot be regenerated. If you paid the kicker cost, Agonizing Demise deals damage equal to its creature's power to the controller of the creature. Kicker is a new ability in this. It pretty much is you can pay the original mana cost of the card and you get the original effect. When you cast the card, if you pay the kicker cost, which is a red and a colorless in this case, you get a bonus. And in this case, the bonus is Agonizing Demise deals damage equal to the creature's power to the creature's controller. So there are a lot of cards with kicker in the set. Alabaster Leech. 1 white for a 1/3 leech. White spells you play cost an additional white to cast. Its stones seem to serve a healing function, but removing them intact is an exhausting process. Tolarian research notes. Each color got a leech card, and every leech costs the corresponding color to cost 1 color more. So they're cheap to play, but they have a drawback. And in this, I would not ever play Alabaster Leech. I cannot think of anybody who would ever use this card. 1 white for a 1/3. It doesn't have first strike. It doesn't have flying. It's just a 1/3 with no abilities other than it makes your other white cost card so much less. If it was a 3/1, then it would be worth it, but not at all. Probably the worst card in the entire game of Magic, creature wise. A 1 mana 1/1 is better than this. Alloy Golem. 6 mana for a 4/4 Golem. When it comes into play, choose a color, and then the Golem becomes the chosen color. It still counts as an artifact. We turned old weapons into new warriors. Johora the Master Artificer. Why you would want to choose a color for an artifact creature? Well, if you have cards that say black creatures get this or white creatures get this, then the Alloy Golem will reap those benefits. Ancient Kavu. 4 mana 3/3. Pay 2. Ancient Kavu becomes colorless until end of turn. Now, quite the opposite. Why would you want your red creature or any creature to become a colorless creature instead? Well, there are a few options to that. If somebody targets a Kavu with Blue Elemental Blast, destroy target red permanent, if you pay 2 mana, he becomes colorless. That spell he's no longer a valid target. If the opponent has Circle of Protection red and you're attacking with the Ancient Kavu, you can pay 2 and your Kavu's not red anymore, and they cannot prevent the damage with the Circle of Protection. Kavu are like a primordial. They're kind of like a dinosaur, just more monstrous and lizard-like. They have a hard carapace, and they came from the depths of Yavimaya to help against the Phyrexian invasion. Those with the ability to change their nature survived Phyrexia's biological attacks. Everything else died. Ancient Spring comes into play tapped. It taps for a blue. You could also tap it and sacrifice it to add a black or a white to your mana pool. I don't see what is black about this other than it's dark. Maybe that's why. Andrade, wait, Andrade? Andorite Leech? 3 mana 2/2. Black spells you cast cost 1 more black to play. Pay a black. Andrade Leech gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Androdite. I'm going to say Androdite. At least this Leech has an additional ability where he can actually become a threat in the late game with just much black mana that you pay. Much, much better than the Alabaster Leech. Older specimens are completely encrusted with gems, which serve as both armor and weapons. Angelic Shield. All creatures you control get +1 toughness. You can sacrifice Angelic Shield to return target creature to its owner's hand. If only an angel's wings could shelter us all. Here, an angel is carrying off a Phyrexian. Angel of Mercy, 5 mana, 3/3 angel with flying. When it comes into play, you gain 3 life. In times like these, people need to be reminded of compassion. All the angels were surviving from Sarah's realm before Sarah collapsed it for Urza's power stones to power the Weatherlight, and they're helping fight off the Phyrexians. Annihilate, 5 mana, destroy target non-black creature, cannot be regenerated, and you draw a card. Whatever Yawgmoth marks dies, there is no escape. Sabo Tavok, the Phyrexian general. Here we see a Drake being torn apart by Phyrexian flying ships, or flying creatures. Archaeological Dig. Tap it to add a colorless. Tap it, sacrifice it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I don't think I've ever seen that land before. Ardent Soldier. It's a 1/2. Attacking doesn't cause it to tap, so it has vigilance. If you paid the kicker cost, he comes into play with a +1/+1 counter. So for a total of 4 mana, you get a 2/3 with vigilance. Not good like standard wise. Probably only good if you're drafting or unlimited. He has a Coalition shield on his belt. I just realized that. Armadillo Cloak, one of the most popular, at least back in my day when people were playing Magic, creature enchantments in the game. Or enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and trample, and whenever the enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So you get a lot for just 3 mana. Your creature gets larger by 2, it gains trample and lifelink. All that for just 3 mana, worth it so much. Don't laugh, it works. You have a Maya Ranger. And here they do have an Armadillo Cloak. They're rolling down a hill, crushing these Phyrexians. Armored Guardian. 5 mana, 2. Is he just a Guardian? Oh no, they turned him into a Cat Soldier? 5 mana, 2/5. Pay a double white and a colorless. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice on a turn, and you can play double blue and a colorless. Armored Guardian cannot be the target of spells or abilities this turn. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use them. Artifact Mutation. Destroy target artifact. It cannot be regenerated. Put X 1/1 green sapling tokens into play where X was the converted mana cost of the destroyed artifact. From Shards and Splinters, I call forth my living horde. Malimo, the Marrow Sorcerer. This was good because there are a lot of powerful artifacts in the game up until this point, and you also get some creatures out of it after destroying whatever threat that you were. Another new aspect of, or another new theme in the invasion block was the first time split cards were introduced. You could cast either side of the card, but at the time, or for these cards specifically, you cannot cast both. You can only cast one side. So if you had just a green deck, you can still put this card in the green deck, but then you'd only be able to cast Battery, where you just put a 3/3 elephant token into play. If you had just red, you could cast Assault. Assault deals 2 damage to target creature or player. If you had a red and green deck, you can still only cast one side of the card. You cannot cast both at the same time. Once casting it, the card would go to the graveyard in itself. Atalia, the Samite Master. 5 mana for a 2/3 legendary cleric. Pay X and tapper. Prevent the next X damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn, or gain X life. You can only use white mana in this way. Healing is a gift the Divine Ones have. Healing is a gift the Divine Ones have shared with us. It is a sacred trust. Aura Mutation, destroy target enchantment, put X 1/1 sapling tokens into the battlefield where X was the mana cost. It's just like Artifact Mutation, except it destroys an enchantment. Life can be found in all things, even things unnatural. Multani, the Marrow Sorcerer. Here he's blowing up a Phyrexian pod, and these little sapling creatures are slithering out. Aura Shards. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Gaia forged her soldiers into self-wielding weapons that struck down all impurities. This is a Kavu. The Kavu were a really good, what's the word, counter against the Phyrexians, because first they were immune to the Phyrexians' poisons, and they had an appetite for machines, and they were strong as heck. So they helped turn the tide of the battle. And this is a powerful card, especially in a group game when artifacts and enchantments are all over the place. Backlash. For 3, tap target untapped creature. That creature deals damage equal to its power to its controller. Has this been errated? Tap target untapped. Yeah, you can only target an untapped creature. Dargaze decided his foe would be more useful as a weapon. So it's kind of hard to see, but in the bottom right corner, you have a Phyrexian here. And this big, large Phyrexian dragon is being pulled or pushed by this dragon. This is Dargaze, one of the Elder Dragons, which we'll see more of in the set. He's about to flatten this little guy with his larger ally. So cool artwork representing what the card does. Baron's Spite. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by 1 player. That player chooses one and sacrifices. That player sacrifices 1 and returns the other to its owner's hand. Only vengeance matters now. Here, Baron's mad. In the Prophecy set, Baron's wife, Rain, the Academy Chancellor, was killed by Greel. So he is full of rage, and you can see him destroying 2 Phyrexians with his magic. Baron's Unmaking. Return target permanent to its owner's hand if that permanent shares a color with the most common color among all permanents or the color tied for... Wait, I gotta reread that. Return target permanent to its owner's hand if that permanent shares a color with the most common color or tied with the most common color. That's too much text for too crappy of a card. There are so many return target permanent to owner's hand for 2 that doesn't matter about all this useless text. Benalish Emissary, 3 mana for a 1/4 wizard. When she comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, destroy target land. I don't know what she has against this little sandy island here, but so you would need 5 mana total for a 1/4 to destroy a land. Not worth it in my opinion. Benalish Heralds, 4 mana 2/4. Pay 4, tap them to draw a card. The detailed dispatch could be summarized in 4 words. Time is running out. I got some funny hairstyles. Expensive, not good in standard at the time, but I guess a decent draft card. Benalish Lancer, 3 mana 2/2. If you pay the kicker cost, it comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters and has first strike. So 6 mana for a 4/4 with first strike. Okay, but not great. Benalish Trapper, a 1/2 soldier. You pay a white, tap it, tap target creature. I'm up here, you're down there. Now who's the lower life form? They had some spikes in this trap, and I guess the Phyrexian fell in, and the Trapper is celebrating his kill. Or her kill? Yeah, it's a her. Or they. Did I pass a card? No. Bender Break. Each player separates all lands that he or she controls into 2 face-up piles. Then one opponent for each player chooses 1 pile. Destroy all lands in 1 pile, tap all lands in the other. There would be more cards that require people separating cards into 2 piles, and then opponents or player chooses which one to keep and which one to throw away. Bind, counter target activated ability, and you get to draw a card. The battlefield is cluttered enough. Be still. Moltani the Mara Sorcerer. This wizard here he can't cast any spells if he can't speak or use any hand movements. And there's an opossum here sneering just for giggles. Blazing Spectre. This looks like Ghost Rider. 4 mana 2/2 flying haste. Whenever Blazing Spectre deals combat damage to a player, that player chooses and discards a card from their hand. Still not as powerful as Hypnotic Spectre, but decent and was a good card during its time. Blinding Light. Tap all non-white creatures. An Angel Sword impales only the body. Her righteousness penetrates the soul. Tapping all creatures is great in white decks, or this card specifically is great in white decks, because then your opponent can't block if they're not playing white. Blind Seer, 4 mana for a 3/3, pay a blue and a colorless. Target spell or permanent becomes the color of your choice until end of turn. I think he sees more than he lets on. So during Gerard's return in Dominaria, as he was trying to recruit more people against the Phyrexian threat, Urza was watching over him in disguise as this Blind Seer. If you recognize the artwork from the Urza's Saga, the Urza's Destiny, and Urza's Saga Legacy Destiny sets, you can tell his outfit looks similar. They just put a huge straw hat on him and a blindfold. He will reveal himself later on. Bloodstone Cameo. Artifact for 3, and it taps for either a black or a red. The stones whisper to me of dragons, fire, and darkness. I wish I'd never pried it from the figurehead of that sunken Keldon logship. Izel the Master Carver. There'd be a few of these artifacts that tap for 2 colors. Blurred Mongoose, 2 mana for a 2/1. It cannot be countered, and it cannot be the target of spells or abilities. The mongoose blew out its candle and was asleep in bed before the room went dark. Llanowar Fable. Pretty much says how fast the mongoose is. Mongoose are... How should I say this? Mongoose and snakes have a very... They're like... I'm trying to think of the word here. Mongoose specialize in hunting snakes. A lot of them are immune to the snake's venom or have developed natural antivenoms in their bodies. And here we have a mongoose going after a snake. The snake's not even going to know what hit it, and it's going to get bit in the back of the neck. And that's how the mongoose kill their snakes. Bog Initiate. You can pay a colorless to add a black mana to your mana pool. So if you are playing a deck that has more than one color and blacks in it, you can use her to filter any mana that you make into black. Urborg's magic is strong. Did Urza send you to protect us or to protect against us? Urborg Witch to Baron. Breaking Wave. You can play it as an instant if you pay 2 more to play it, which would go up to 6. Simultaneously untap all tap creatures and tap all untapped creatures. So if all of yours are tapped from attacking and your opponent is about to attack, if you have the 2 extra to pay, you can cast it as an instant. Then all your creatures become untapped, and all their untapped creatures become tapped. You can use this offensively or defensively. Breath of Dargaze. It deals 1 damage to each creature without flying and each player. If you paid the kicker cost, Breath of Dargaze deals 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player instead. So if you pay 4, you do 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player. Here, the Elder Dragon is roasting some Phyrexians. Kalos Giant, 6 mana for 4/4. If a source would deal 3 damage or less to the Kalos Giant, prevent that damage. The invasion has awoken slumbering mountains, noted Urza. Good, we can use all the help we can get. A very unique ability for Red. Red does not really have a lot of prevent defensive abilities. So I've never seen anybody use this giant, though. I like it. Canopy Surge. Canopy Surge deals 1 damage to each creature with flying and each player. If you pay the kicker cost, it does 4 damage to each creature with flying and each player instead. Polar opposite of Dargaze's Breath. Capetian Unicorn, 2 mana for a 1/2. You pay a white and a colors, tap it, sacrifice the unicorn to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Capetian riders were stern and humorless even before their ancestral home was reduced to rubble. I don't like that you have to sacrifice the unicorn. Doesn't sound right. That sounds like a heresy. Captain Sisay, 4 mana 2/2. She finally gets her own card. She is a human soldier. Tap her to search your library for a legendary card and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. If you have a legendary deck, you need Captain Sisay. She is popular in Commander for just that reason. Her leadership forged the Weatherlight's finest crew. Captain Sisay is one of Gerard's best friends, and she was around during the Weatherlight saga and was kidnapped with Volrath, and the whole reason why Gerard had to go to Wrath to rescue her. Cauldron Dance. You can only play it during combat. Return target creature from your graveyard to play. It gains haste. Then the creature goes back to your hand at the end of the turn. Put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Put it into your graveyard at the end of the turn. So after combat, you're pretty much swapping a creature from your graveyard and your hand. Costly, but effective. Chaotic Strike can only be played during combat after blockers have been declared. Choose target creature and flip a coin. If you win the flip, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you get to draw a card. Why it's an uncommon, I'm not sure. But it shows a Kavu in combat with a Phyrexian, in combat with a Metatron soldier. I don't know why the Kavu is attacking the Metatron soldier. Nobody's really commanding the Kavu, I guess, except for Yavimaya himself. But in the heat of battle, anything's possible. Charging Troll, 4 mana for a 3/3 vigilance and regeneration. They stop for nothing, not even the end of a battle. Decent green-white creature. Chromatic Spear, pay 1, tap it. Sacrifice Chromatic Sphere, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, draw a card. It's an artifact for mana color fixing. Let Insight and Energy be your guides. The Blind Seer to Urza. Or the Blind Seer to Gerard. The Blind Seer is Urza. Cinder Shade. I like the artwork for this. 3 mana, 1/1 Shade. It has the Shade ability where you pay a black and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then you can pay a red, sacrifice it. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature. Too bad it doesn't hit the player as well. But currently my favorite creature in the set. Coalition Victory. You might see its mana cost be like, oh, that's a lot. 1 mana of each color plus 3 colorless. However, you win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. So if you have a forest, a mountain, a plains, an island, or a... what am I missing? Forest, plains, island, mountain, swamp. If you have any combination or all combinations of those 5 lands, and then you have creatures that they at least are 1 mana of each color in total, then you automatically win the game after casting this spell upon its resolution. I have seen it done, and I think I've only seen it done once or twice. I know I had it in my Sliver Queen deck. I never pulled it off, though. And then one of my friends had a deck with Atogs with 5 colors. Atog is a 5-color creature. And he pulled that off in a group game, and no matter what, he ended up just winning that group game. Nobody touched. But I guarantee if somebody uses Coalition Victory and gets it off once, it's going to be hard for them to do it again because you'll be the target of every group game as long as you're using that deck in the future. Oh, it's banned in Commander. I did not know that. Coastal Tower comes into play tapped, and you can tap it for a white or a blue. The Capetian built the highest towers in Benalia to afford themselves the best view. Rich. Collapsing Borders. the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player gains 1 life for each basic land type among lands he or she controls. Then Collapsing Borders deals 3 damage to him or her. So this card will punish any players who only have like 1 or 2 colored decks, where the maximum land of each type they could have out is 2, meaning they'll only gain 2 life, but then they'll take 3 damage, meaning they'll take 1 a turn. Otherwise, they're most likely going to take 2 a turn. If you have 5 land out of each basic land type, you're gaining 2 life a turn in total. I've never seen the card, honestly. Collective Restraint. Creatures cannot attack you unless its controller pays X for each basic land type among basic land types you control. Another card for rewards you for playing all 5 lands. And it is good defensively because it stops your opponent from swarming with everything if they don't have the mana to be able to afford. Cremate. For 1 black, remove target card in a graveyard from the game. Draw a card. Death's Embrace need not be cold. Crimson Acolyte with protection from red. It's a 1/1 cleric for 2, and you can pay a white to give target creature protection from red until end of turn. The faithful will walk through streams of fire and emerge unscathed. Crimson Acolyte Creed. Here's a little boy, and the Crimson Acolyte is protecting him for some fire. Croesus' Attendant. 5 mana, 3/3 golem. Pay 1, sacrifice it to add a combination of blue, black, and red to your mana pool. Croesus is the eye of the Ura Dragon, piercing illusion and darkness. And we see Croesus flying in the background. And we also see Croesus the Purger. He costs the corresponding blue, black, red, plus 3 colorless. He is a legendary dragon and one of the 5 elder dragons of this set. Whenever Croesus the Purger deals combat damage to a player, you may pay a black and 2. If you do, choose a color. That player reveals his or her hand and discards all cards of the chosen color from it. Croesus is my favorite of the 5 dragons, of the 5 legendary dragons in the set, and probably I'm going to guess it's my favorite card overall. I like the artwork. He does look intimidating. His head looks unique. It doesn't look like a normal dragon head. It looks more like a demon, something horrific. But that's what I'm all about. I love that style. Crown of Flames. Enchanted creature gets the fire breathing ability, where for every red you pay, they get +1 to their power. And you can pay a red and return Crown of Flames to its owner's hand. This card is a reprint from Exodus, I believe. All my life, I've fought these monsters. Today, I finished that fight. Baron's pissed. Hannah ends up being poisoned with the Phyrexian, or I should say infected with the Phyrexian disease, and they're not able to save her. So Baron's anger only rises, and his sadness deepens. Crusading Knight. For 4 mana, it's a 2/2 with protection from black. Crusading Knight gets +1/+1 for each swamp your opponent controls. My only dream is to destroy the nightmares of others. This is a nightmare against black decks. Crypt Angel. 5 mana, 3/3, flying, protection from white. When Crypt Angel comes into play, return a blue or red creature from your graveyard to your hand. Once an angel, now an abomination. Crystal Spray. Change the text of target speller or permanent by replacing all instances of a color word or a basic land type with another until end of turn. Draw a card. So you can change a land type word or a color choosing word. There are, at this point now, there are a lot of cards that have that. So this is a combination of both magical hack and I forgot the name of the others. Sleight of mind. Cursed Flesh. Enchanted creature gets -1/-1 and cannot be blocked except by artifact and or black creatures. So you could use it offensively or defensively. Put it on a weak creature or a strong creature to further weaken it. or put it on one of your own creatures. It makes it a little bit weaker, but if you want to get damage through and this is your only way, that option is available. Misery, filth, and disease, all things that bring suffering to the world, only make Phyrexians more dangerous. Dargaze's attendant, he can be sacrificed to add black, red, or green to your mana pool. And green, not or. Dargaze is the breath of the Ur Dragon, burning away the burdens of mortality. And here's Dargaze the Igniter. He ends up being, in the story, the most powerful of the 5 dragons. And I do believe he flies into a volcano. I forgot why he does it. I think he causes the volcano to erupt, and it destroys a huge Phyrexian legion or something like that. Anyway, for what the card does, when Dargaze the Igniter deals combat damage to a player, you may pay a red and 2. If you do, choose a color. That player reveals their hand, and Dargaze deals X damage to him or her, where X is the number of cards revealed of that color. Death or Glory. Separate all creature cards in your graveyard into 2 face-up piles. Remove the pile of an opponent's choice from the game and return the other pile into play. That's a pretty decent mass graveyard revival for white. Even if your opponent gets to choose a pile. If you make your piles correctly, you're almost always going to revive a threat. Defiling Tears. Until end of turn, target creature becomes black, gets +1/-1, and gains pay black, regenerate this creature. Sarah's living warriors looked on in horror. Where is Our Lady now? They cried. I don't know. It's too expensive for too little, in my opinion. Desperate Research. Name a card other than a basic land. Then reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Put all of them with that name into your hand. Remove the rest from the game. So you kind of have to know what is coming up to get the most out of this card. The artwork, I guess in an ironic twist, they have a Phyrexian and they have dissected the Phyrexian and they're looking at what makes them tick. That's something that the Phyrexians would do to us. Devouring Strauss. 8 mana for a 9/9 flying trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice a creature. And then you can also sacrifice a creature at any time to regenerate the Devouring Strauss. If he's the only creature left on your side of the battlefield, then you have to sacrifice him to himself. But at least he doesn't deal any damage to you or anything like Lord of the Pit. Dismantling Blow. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. If you pay the kicker cost, draw 2 cards. And here it shows Urza smashing a Phyrexian pod. Gerard's crying out. I don't know what. I forgot what the significance of this pod was. I really need to reread the books. Disrupt. We have Urza into Teferi, closing or trying to close a Phyrexian portal. Counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1. Draw a card. This is a reprint. Teferi wanted no part of Urza's battle plans, but both agreed that the Phyrexian portal must be closed. I know earlier in the Keldon War that was taking place in Prophecy, Teferi asked for Urza's help, and Urza said he couldn't help him. He had to save his resources against the Phyrexians, so Teferi vowed to never help Urza again, but he had no choice. He needed to protect his people, and he realigned himself with Urza. Distorting Wake for 3 blue and X. Return X target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. Gerard savored a grim smile as the Phyrexian portals disappeared behind the Weatherlight. They were using the Weatherlight to permanently close all the portals that were helping the Phyrexians come in. Divine Presence. It's an enchantment. If a source would deal 4 or more damage to a creature or player, that source only does 3 damage to that creature or player instead. Sarah's Light isn't easily extinguished. Raya the Dawnbringer. This is good against larger creatures that would under normal circumstances die to big damage. And players too. This would, if a player's fireballing you for 86, you're only going to take 3 damage with this enchantment out. Do or die. Separate all creatures target player controls into 2 face-up piles. Destroy all creatures in 1 pile. They cannot be regenerated. And this is a prison in Urborg that is not immune to the Phyrexian invasion. Drake Skull cameo. The black-blue artifact mana maker. A strange skull was turned up by an Ephron farmer's plow. I traded a copper ring for the ox skull. It resonates of the sea and danger. Dream Thrush. It's a 1/1 flying bird. Tap it, target land becomes the land type of your choice until end of turn. Whether for good or ill, their arrival always means change. Good mana fixing bird, but not really good. Dredge. For 1 black, sacrifice a creature or a land to draw a card. I'd strip away the world to see what's under it, but I'd never just leave it to these Phyrexian parasites and their false god, Urborg Witch. Dromar's Attendant. Dromar is the wings of the Eurodragon, sweeping away all opposition, and you can sacrifice them for a white, blue, and black. Here's Dromar the Banisher, my second favorite of the 5 dragons in this Elder Dragons, Legendary Dragons, whatever you want to call them. When Dromar the Banisher deals combat damage to a player, pay 2 in a blue. If you do, choose a color, return all creatures of that chosen color to their owner's hand. This could wipe an entire field if he gets through, if the opponent's only playing a single color. Dueling Grounds, 3 mana enchantment. The Phyrexian general that was in charge of the full-scale invasion on Dominaria was Sabo Tavok. Here she is fighting Gerard to the death. No more than 1 creature may attack, and no more than 1 creature may block. This goes for everybody. You think you can stop me, hissed Sabo. I think I can kill you, replied Gerard. He actually does not kill her. He does wound her, though. Gerard is victorious, but Sabo does not die in this manner. Duskwalker. For 1 black, it's a 1/1. If you paid the kicker cost, she comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters and has fear. So it's either 1/1 for 1 or a 3/3 with fear for 5 mana. Still a lot. Elfhame Palace. It's a land that comes into play tapped and can tap for a green or a white. Land of War has 7 Elfhames, or kingdoms, each with its own ruler. Their palaces are objects of awe, wonder, and envy. Elfhame Sanctuary. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you choose to do this, you skip drawing a card at the beginning of your turn. Then shuffle your library. This was good to, if you really, really need land, this let you get that land and further prevented you from getting mana screwed or not having enough land in your opening hand. Elvish Champion. 3 mana 2/2 elves. All elves get +1/+1 and have Forest Walk. Reprinted. For what are leaves but countless blades to fight a countless foe on high? Good elf lord to have. Empress Galena, 5 mana for a 1/3 legendary merfolk. Pay 2 blue and tap her to gain control of target legendary card. Above the waves you may be mighty indeed, but down here you belong to me. Is she banned in Commander? Surprisingly, she is not banned in Commander. Because your commander has to be a legendary permanent, she can just steal your commander. I'm surprised she's not banned. Essence Leak. For 1 blue, if enchanted permanent is red or green, it has at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this permanent unless you pay its mana cost. We define the boundaries of reality. They do not define us. Quote from Teferi, and it shows a Kavu fading away from existence. Sideboard card against red and green. Exclude. Teferi's fighting off this Phyrexian. Counter target creature spell. Draw a card. I don't have time for you right now. Quote for Teferi. I wish I could do that to customers. Exotic Curse. 3 mana. Enchant creature gets -1/-1 for each basic land that you control. Fouler than a Necromancer's Kiss. A Jamoran Expression. Shows this bird, I guess, being cursed by this witch. Explosive Growth. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If you pay the kicker cost, that creature gets +5/+5 instead. So if you pay 6, the creature gets +5/+5. So this snake ended up eating a smaller snake, or assume a small worm, and then this thing grew inside of it. So I assume this snake's dead, and this worm's got a funny look on his face like, yeah. You can also see the invasion symbol on the scales of this worm. Fact or Fiction. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates them into 2 face-up piles. Put one into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. It shows Hannah and Squee going through some documents or blueprints or notes or something. Fairy Squadron. You can pay 1 for a 1/1 with flying, or if you pay 5 total, you get a 3/3 with flying fairy. Still expensive. Fertile Ground. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of any color. Additionally, as Phyrexians descended, Multani paused to reflect on the beauty that might never be seen again. Fight or Flight. At the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, separate all creatures into 2 face-up piles. Only creatures in the pile of their choice may attack this turn. A good way to stop being swarmed. Firebrand Ranger. 2 mana, 2/1. Pay a green and tap it. Put a basic land from your hand onto the battlefield. A skilled ranger can glance at the mud on your boots and tell where you last camped. Decent mana ramp. Fire Screamer. 4 mana for a 2/2 Kavu with a fire-breathing ability. In the dark, it's nearly invisible until it exhales. The artwork is very cool. Fires of Yavimaya, a very strong tournament-winning card, especially when it got paired with Blastoderm from the Nemesis set. Creatures you control have haste, and then at any time you can sacrifice the fires to give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. If you needed that additional 2 damage to win the game, that was an option. Or to save a creature from death. It was just so versatile, and it helped creatures that normally wouldn't be as dangerous twice as dangerous. Fires. Now we go to the first basic lands. Forest. I like how it shows. This is almost, to me, like a real photograph of you going into a misty forest in the morning, and you see the sun trying to shine its way through the canopy. Here's a more sunlit forest. It gives me redwood vibes, or like a forest in California. This one is more, these remind me of baobab trees. More African, I guess. And then this is some treetop village. I assume these are elves who live up in these trees. They got a little waterfall, little stream here for their water. And lots of birds. Lots of birds. A lot of times you don't really see any living creature in the artwork of these lands. So I do like when they do this. Frenzied Tilling. 5 mana, destroy target land, search your library for a basic land, and put it into play tapped, then shuffle your library. So not only do you set your opponent's land down by 1, you boost yourself up ahead by 1 as well. Artwork shows some Kavu clawing through the land. I guess they're making tunnels. Or trenches. Trench was the word I was looking for. Galena's Knight. A merfolk knight for 2/2 for a white and a blue, and he has protection from red. Are they on our side? Asked to say. If they kill Phyrexians, they are, replied Gerard. I like their seahorse mount. even though he doesn't really look like he rides it. Geothermal Crevice comes into play tapped. You can tap it for a red. You can tap and sacrifice it for a black and a green. Get 2 Fire. This is Johora using her Get 2 Fire on a Phyrexian. You could play it as an instant for 2 mana more. It does X damage to any target. Glimmering Angel, 4 mana 2/2 Flying Angel. Pay a blue. She can't be targeted if spells or abilities until end of turn. We turned to see where the blow came from and saw only a distant light. Capetian Lord. Never seen it used. Global Rune. Each player chooses from the lands he or she controls. Or each player chooses from the lands he or she controls 1 land of each basic land type and then sacrifices the rest. The earth shook, the sky rained fire, and it seemed the world was ending. Benevolent Refugee. There, something with the equivalent of an atomic bomb detonated over Benalia. I want to say it was a Phyrexian bomb. And, instead of radiation, the Phyrexian disease was a result of it. And the card itself, if you're only playing, mountains, you choose 1 mountain and then you have to sacrifice the rest of your mountains. This only rewarded decks that used. I think they made the keyword domain in future sets that mattered about how many basic land types you were using. Goblin Spy, 1/1 goblin for 1 red. Play with the top card of your library revealed. So your opponent gets to see what you're going to draw next as well. Isn't he on our side? Yep. Why is he spying on us? Don't ask. It's funny. He's standing his goblin comrades are marching right by him, and he's spying on them. Golham Jin. 6 mana, 5/5 with regeneration. He gets -2/-2 as if black is the most common color on the battlefield. And it's showing him fight some elves. The artwork looks cool. Looks like he was damaged by some of the elves' weaponry, but they're not standing a chance against him. He looks great. The Hallam Djinn, each color got a Djinn, by the way, of this, that have if they're the most common color on the battlefield, they get reduced power and toughness. Otherwise, it's a 6/5 with haste for 6. Pretty good. Hannah gets her own card, Hannah the Ship's Navigator. I think she has a mono white one, but it's called something else in the Exodus set. Pay 1, a white and a blue, tap her, return target artifact or enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. I never thought I'd spend my life fighting. I'm a maker, not a destroyer. She was very powerful with Mindslaver or to bring a destroyed Platinum Angel back. So, and the fact that she could keep doing it made her that powerful. Harrow has additional cost to play. Harrow, sacrifice the land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands and put them on the battlefield. Shuffle your library afterwards. No spot in nature is truly barren. Harsh Judgment. As Harsh Judgment comes into play, choose a color. If an instant or sorcery of the chosen color would deal damage to you, it deals that much damage to its controller instead. At least they remember me, Gerard says. Gerard actually got arrested for abandoning his post in Dominaria. He was supposed to stay behind and train the Capetian Knights and fight whatever wars that was going on in Dominaria, but he left all that to go save Captain Sisay, and abandoning your post is considered treason. But the Phyrexian invasion kind of saves Gerard from his imprisonment indirectly. Hate Weaver, 2 mana for a 2/1 wizard. Pay 2 colorless. Target blue or red creature gets power +1 until end of turn. Let my hate fuel your fury. Heroes Reunion. Once again, Gerard meets up with Eladamri. You helped save my people from a Phyrexian fate. Did you think I won't return the favor? Eladamri to Gerard. For 2 mana, target player gains 7 life. So if you want to be political, you could target one of your opponents in a group game. If you're playing a team game, you could give it to your teammate. Treason. Holy Day. Pay 1 white. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. It's the white version of Fog. Oof. Will history remember this day as the day demons arrived or the day saviors arrived? Here's Urza with his machines, and they're closing another portal. Hooded Kavu, 3 mana for a 2/2. Pay a black. Hooded Kavu gains fear until end of turn. The spread of its hood eclipses all hope. This Kavu, he has like the head of a cobra. I love cobras. They're pretty cool. And again, I don't know why the Metatron are being attacked by the Kavu. The Kavu are just wild. They'll eat anything. Horned Cheetah, 4 mana for a 2/2 cat. Whenever Horned Cheetah deals combat damage, you gain that much life, so he has Spirit Link. I think she wants us to eat it, said Squee, staring at the oily carcass the cheetah had dragged to their fire. Even the animals were band together to defeat the Phyrexians. Hello, Flobo23. Welcome in. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the video. Hunting Kavu, 2/3. Pay a red, a green, and a colorless. Tap it. Remove from the game Hunting Kavu and target creature without flying that's attacking you. Dominarians gladly fought alongside Kavu until the Kavu figured out some Dominarians were quite tasty. Oh, okay, this answers my question, why the Kavu were eating more than just the Phyrexians. Squee does always rule, Flobo. Hypnotic Cloud. Target player discards a card from their hand. If you paid the kicker cost, which is 4, that player discards 3 cards from their hand instead. So you would have to pay a total of 6 mana to get your opponent to discard 3 cards. I'm doing well, Flobo. My work week has ended. I have the next 2 days off. So full of some R&R. Kicking off the weekend with this weekly Magic stream. Irrigation Ditch. Irrigation Ditch comes into play tapped. You can tap for a white, or you can sacrifice it for a green and a blue. I do like the artwork on this land. It's very peaceful. Here's a tropical island full with palm trees. This island looks more foreboding. We can see merfolk. I assume these are merfolk staffs planted in the ground. I guess that's for territory. This island looks a bit more storm hit. You can see, I assume it's coral or seashells. And this is a aerial view of a tropical island full of greenery, and it even has a little rainbow. This is either a bridge or a rainbow, but this does look like a good vacation spot. I assume a lot of sharks would like to swim up through here. This island actually reminds me of like a lot of islands that we see in movies. Speaking of green, Flobo, we have Jade Leech. 4 mana for a 5/5. Green spells you cast cost an additional green to play. It took magic to extract one of the stones and 5 people to carry it. This is the largest leech, but there are much better creatures in the game for 4 mana for a 5/5. I also have a few of my friends in my messenger listening. Shout out to Sam. Next is Juntu Stakes. Creatures with power 1 or less don't untap during their controller's untap step. This stops little creatures from doing anything in the game other than blocking. Those who can't survive are of no consequence. A quote from Sabo Tavak. Next is Kenji, the Ari Keeper. She or it, I'm not sure. I guess he. It is a 2/2 with flying for 4. When it comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, put X feather tokens on it. All birds get +1/+1 for each feather counter on Kenji, the Airy Keeper. This is only good in a bird deck. Doesn't create any tokens itself, but back in the day, I just noticed they're all different species of birds. I think we have a cardinal here, we have a seagull, we have an eagle, a bluebird, albatross in the background maybe. I like birds. Birds are cool. Bird's the word. Kavu Aggressor, 3 mana for a 3/2 that cannot block. If you paid the kicker cost, he comes into play with a +1/+1 counter. Kicker cost is 4 mana, so 7 mana for a 4/3 that can't block. That's absolutely terrible. Why would anyone ever wait to pay the kicker cost? 3 mana for a 3/2 that can't block is way better than 7 for a 4/3. Kavu Chameleon, 5 mana 4/4. This cannot be countered, which is great. Pay a green, Kavu Chameleon becomes any color of your choice until end of turn. They weren't part of my plan, but Gaia insisted. Kavu Climber, 5 mana for a 3/3 Kavu that when it comes into play, you get to draw a card, and drawing cards is very important in the game. Yeah, Flobo, kicker was not always great. I think Flobo, you're talking about Bloomborough? Yeah, Bloomborough. I am excited for that set with all animals. Sam said, come a chameleon. Whenever I play Kavu Chameleon, if I ever play Kavus again, because they don't have any of the... They're reprinting some old cards digitally, but there's just so many old cards that aren't. I need to start playing physical Magic again. Kavu Lair. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater comes into play, its controller draws a card. So this works for everybody, unfortunately. I know in the up to date now in Magic, the newer enchantments don't help your opponent unless they're designed to. But as a dark rain of Phyrexians fell from the sky, fountains of Kavu erupted from the ground. There's another card I'm trying to think of. I think it's Garruk's. Can't remember. Garruk has a lot of cards, but I know what you're speaking of, Flobo. It is an old version of a better card that only works for yourself. Kavu Monarch. 4 mana for a 3/3. All Kavu have trample. This is considered one of the Kavu lords. Whenever another Kavu comes into play, put a +1/+1 counter on Kavu Monarch. Kavu emerged all across Dominaria, but first and the strongest came from Yavimaya. Most Kavu have 6 legs as well. I forgot to mention that. 6-legged, heavily armored reptilian dinosaur. Kavu Runner has haste as long as no opponent controls a white or a blue creature. Kavu Scout, 3 mana for a 0/2, but it gets power +1 for each basic land type among lands that you control. I think Kavu, back then Kavu was my second favorite creature type. Slivers were number 1. Kavu were number 2. I do like reptiles. The Kavu evolved for centuries deep inside Dominaria, and some can draw from its strength. Kavu Titan, 2 mana for a 2/2 regularly. If you pay the additional 3, the Kavu Titan comes into play with 3+1/+1 counters and has trample. So for total, you'll get 5 mana for a 5/5 trample. That's good. This is a kicker cost that is worth playing. Because Flobo mentioned earlier that kicker wasn't always great, but this is an instance where kicker is great. Because 2 mana for a 2/2, if you need a creature early game, 2 mana 2/2, it's not bad. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad. 5 mana for a 5/5 is good, but 5 mana for a 5/5 with trample is just so much better. He is a threat, and he is literally punching some dude in the face. Imagine getting punched by a gigantic 6-legged dog dinosaur thing. Kavu were considered the ultimate life form on Dominaria. Keldon Necropolis. Tap it to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Pay 5, tap it, sacrifice a creature. Keldon Necropolis does 2 damage to target creature or player. Liberate. Remove target creature you control from the game. At the end of the turn, return that card to play under its owner's control. So it's like a flicker card. Not everyone gets a second chance. This is when Gerard was escaping the prison in Benalia, and they were able to take some prisoners with him when the Phyrexians came to attack. And this is moments before that Phyrexian bomb goes off. Lightning Dart, 2 mana, instant, deals 1 damage to target creature. If that creature is white or blue, it does 4 damage to them instead. Sideboard card for white and blue. Broken and punctured by dozens of Phyrexian portals, the angry sky began to spit lightning back at the world. And we can see, because these fish and merfolk are in water, and water is a conductor of electricity, they got fried. Llanowar Cavalry, 3 mana for a 1/4, pay a white. Attacking does not cause them to tap this turn. For the first time, elves welcomed Benalish soldiers into the forest with something other than arrows. As I said before, all the forces that existed on Dominaria had to come together to defeat the Phyrexians. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, so to speak, and it ended up elves allied with humans. Humans had to ally with zombies, the undead. I know they had enlisted the aid of a Lich Lord who kind of betrayed them. That comes up in a later set to an extent, but they were all united to fight the Phyrexians. Llanowar Elite, it's 1 mana 1/1 with trample. It's kind of funny having a 1/1 for 1 for trample. He's not going to trample really over anything unless he's equipped or enchanted. However, he has kicker of 8. If you pay the kicker cost, he comes into play with 5+1/+1 counters, meaning you'll get a 6/6 with trample for 9 mana. That's a lot. He might be good in an elf deck. The brothers did have to find out who was stronger, and this was the whole catalyst of the Phyrexian invasion because of the 2 brothers, Urza and Mishra. Llanowar Knight, 2 mana, elf knight, protection from black. Her armor and steed were borrowed, but her courage was hers alone, and she is riding a Kavu. Llanowar Vanguard, 3 mana for a 1/1. Tapper, Llanowar Vanguard gets +4 toughness until end of turn. I guess she'd be good in like a toughness matters deck, but other than that, I don't see any use for her. I played the that elf too, Llanowar Knight. Loafing Giant, 5 mana, 4/6 giant. He looks goofy as heck. He's scratching his head like dirt. He looks like a lot of customers and some of my associates that I work with. Whenever a Loafing Giant attacks or blocks, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. If that card was a land, prevent all combat damage that Loafing Giant would deal this turn. Forget it. I'm not getting up today. You can see the dumpster fire that is behind it. And I don't know why I would... Even the 5 mana for 4/6, you're not really getting much reward for him. Too much drawback. Flobo said some more stuff. Protection from Black was good back in the day. Flobo likes this giant. The giant, he is a funny card. But unfortunately, I don't like him. This card looks a bit romantic. Lobotomy. Look at target player's hand and choose a card other than a basic land from it. Search that player's graveyard, hand, and library for all cards with the same name and remove them from the game. Then that player shuffles his or her library. It shows Sabo Tavok. She has a Metatron soldier in her grasp. Sabo Tavok is very vindictive, and she gets ecstatic joy from killing. Lotus Guardian, 7 mana for a 4/4. Oh, it's a dragon now. 4/4 artifact dragon with flying, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If I had a 4/4 creature with flying, I don't think I would use it as mana unless I absolutely needed that 1 extra mana. If you can afford 7 mana by the time you have Lotus Guardian out, then I don't think you're going to ever need to tap them for mana. Lotus Fields are too valuable to leave undefended. Flobo says, gotta love extracting thoughts. Imagine if that were actually possible, if you can extract people's thoughts and see them for yourself. Mage's Contest. This card has a lot of text, so bear with me. You and target spell's controller bid life. You start bidding with a high bid of 1. In turn order, each player may top the high bid. The bidding ends when the highest bid stands. The highest bidder loses life equal to the life that they bid. If you win the bidding, counter that spell. So basically, long story short, if you want to counter a spell with red, you bet an amount of life, and then you go back and forth with the controller of that spell. If they want to get their spell to resolve, they're going to take damage equal to the amount of life, as long as each player can afford that. I've never seen this card used. Flobo likes Invasion. He says it is so great. Mana Maze. Players cannot play spells that share a color with the spell that they last played on this turn. Those who know only one path to victory can never hope to triumph. The Blind Seer. Maniacal Rage. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and cannot block. I believe this is reprinted from either Tempest or Stronghold. Remember me, Tarngarth roared? Now I'll repay you for my stay on Wrath. And he is literally punching the heads off of Phyrexians. Manipulate Fate. Search your library for 3 cards and remove them from the game. Then shuffle your library, draw a card. I guess this is if you want to thin out your deck. Flobo says it was Tempest that Maniacal Rage was printed in. Marauding Knight. This is the polar opposite to the Crusading Knight. It is 2/2 with protection from white, and it gets +1/+1 for each planes your opponent controls. They ride our trails as if they were designed to, said the guard. They were, replied Gerard. I do like the look of the mechanical Phyrexian horse. And the knight looks also just as cool. Unfortunately for mankind, if the Phyrexians did attack us, I probably would willingly become a Phyrexian. Just out of sheer curiosity. So let's just hope, for mankind's sake, that does not happen. Metatron Aerostat. 4 mana, 2/2 ship with flying. You pay an X and a blue. You may put a creature card with mana cost X from your hand into play. If you do, you must return the Metatron Aerostat to its owner's hand. This is like a poor man's Quicksilver Amulet. We definitely would not stand a chance, Flobo. Excuse me. I'll be right back. I gotta grab some more water. Bit my tongue earlier when I was eating, and now it's a little swollen. Next up, Metatron Transport. It looks like a UFO. It has flying. It cannot be blocked by blue creatures, and you can pay a blue. Target creature becomes blue until end of turn. This card is a reskinned Philomerid. If you remember from either the Tempest or the Stronghold set, the little flying squid or cuttlefish, that card is everything that this card does. It just has a different name and creature type. Metatron Zombie. 2 mana, 1/1. Pay a black. Regenerate the Metatron Zombie. Rise, Metatron. You shall serve a nobler cause in death. Sabotvok, the Phyrexian general. So the Metatron were Urza's soldiers that he made in a laboratory from just getting DNA from all of each Dominaria's best warriors. And they're the white-haired blue soldiers. But Phyrexians, they have... Dang, excuse me. Milo, I think you're doing this. One of my cats keeps rubbing up on me. I don't know if he's like spreading his cat hair and I'm inhaling it or not. Anyway, the Phyrexians had these spinal parasitic creatures that if it got into your body, it would just latch onto your brain. You can see it in the artwork here. It comes out of its host's mouth, and it spines through the spinal cord. These animate, Phyrexia uses it to animate corpses. So they used their allies against them. Excuse me. Meteor Storm, green and a red. Enchantment, pay 4, discard 2 cards at random from your hand. Meteor Storm deals 4 damage to target creature or player. I've never seen this card before. Flobo says they're a metaphor for capitalism. That they are. I agree with you 100%. The storm wasn't an omen. It was the fulfillment of one. Might Weaver. 2 mana wizard. Pay 2. Target red or white creature gains trample until end of turn. Let my strength harden your resolve. Flobo, it's okay. I don't consider you spamming because the only thing I consider spamming is if you keep repeating the same thing over and over. So you're perfectly fine. I'm able to keep up with your chat, so you're free to type as you please. So far, you've been great. It's not like I have 20 people are in the chat or anything like that. Malimo, the Marrow Sorcerer. He is a Marrow Sorcerer just like Multani was. Multani was of Yavimaya. I believe Malimo came from... I forgot which forest he's in charge of. But he's a 7... Costs 7 mana and trample. Malimo's power and toughness is each equal to the number of lands you control. The world calls and I answer. Where Multani cared about the total number of cards in everybody's hands, Malimo only cares about the lands you control. Here's a basic mountain. You can see the snowy peak tops, and then regular gets flatter below. This mountain's a bit more volcanic and tectonic. You can see dust and debris. Rock slide, I guess, happens more common. Here's more of a volcanic mountain range. And this one, I believe, I assume this is either a river of magma along its peaks. I've never seen this mountain before. This is a cool looking mountain. Here's morning. We get a close-up view of Baron and Urza in the background. Enchanted creature gets power -2. Pay a black to return morning to its owner's hand. Baron waited for the nausea to pass or for Urza to say something else. He waited in vain. Nightscape Apprentice. Wizard for 1 black. Pay a blue, tap it, put target creature you control on top of its owner's library. Or you could pay a red and give target creature gain first strike until end of turn. The only time I think you would ever put your own creature on top of your library is if it had like a enters the battlefield effect or common ability effect. Samantha just sent me a gif of SpongeBob when he went into Sandy Cheeks' habitat and dried up since he's a sponge. That's me right now. Water! Sandy, I need some water! Sorry, that's my dried up SpongeBob impression. Nightscape Master, 4-mana 2/2 wizard, pay double blue, return target creature to its owner's hand, pay double red, deal 2 damage to target creature. Each color gets a master and apprentice, and they each represent the ally colors to its own color. As Flobo mentioned, these scape creatures were cool in that manner. Oh, my cat's going to come running because half of this card's name is literally her name. Noble Panther. She's asleep, but her ears just perked up. 3/3 cat, pay a colorless. Noble Panther gets first strike until end of turn. Fortunately, I wish it just had first strike. 3 mana for 3/3 first strike for a rare card for green-white, I think would have been good. Unlike many hunters, these panthers have no need for camouflage. They're fast enough to catch any prey. I think green-white was the most powerful color thanks to cards like Noble Panther, that Elf Knight that has protection from black, Armadillo Cloak, Nomadic Elf, 2 mana, 2/2 elf, pay a green and a colorless, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I've journeyed across Dominaria. Phyrexians are everywhere. Plague is everywhere. There's no place left to hide. Obliterate. Obliterate cannot be countered. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They cannot be regenerate. For his family, Baron made a funeral pyre of Teleria. Here, Baron sacrifices himself. He lost his wife. He lost his daughter. He's pretty much got nothing left to fight for, so he goes out in a blaze of glory against the Phyrexians who were attacking Teleria. Obsidian Acolyte is the partner of the Crimson Acolyte, except protection from black instead of red. Pay a white, target creature against protection from black until end of turn. Here he's saving a little boy from some black ooze with just the palm of his hand. No need to apologize, Flobo, you're good. The truth will stand in the gaze of death and escape unharmed. The Obsidian Acolyte Creed. Opt for 1 blue. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom and draw a card. Opt would eventually become Scry, or the idea of looking at the top card of your library and choosing to put it on the bottom if you wish would be later known as Scry. We need alternatives, Hannah, yelled Gerard. Now. Here's Hannah. Hannah's in the Weatherlight ship, and these are Phyrexian airships flying through. I think this is the moment right before she gets infected with the Phyrexian disease. Ordered Migration, 5 mana, put a 1/1 bird token with flying into play for each basic land type among lands you control. Birds reach all parts of the world, said Baron. They will make excellent scouts. Orm's Touch. You can prevent 2 damage dealt to any creature or player for 1 white. If you pay the kicker cost, prevent 4 damage instead. And the kicker cost is only 1 colorless more. Overabundance. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds an additional mana to his or her mana pool. And then Overabundance deals 1 damage to him or her. So for each land they tap, they take a damage, if I'm reading that right. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player, they get an additional mana, but then Overabundance deals 1 damage to him or her. Yeah, so for every land you tap, you do take a damage, but your lands tap for double, so to speak. Overload. Destroy target artifact if its mana cost is 2 or less for just 1 red. If you pay the kicker cost of 2, you get to destroy an artifact with mana cost 5 or less instead. So for a total of 3 mana, you can destroy an artifact for 5 or less. It's better just to run Shatter. 2 mana destroy a target artifact no matter what. Here's a split card of Pain and Suffering. This card reminds me of Elspeth. Who's Elspeth? We'll find out much later in Magic's future. Or I should say in these videos' future, because Elspeth has been around for a while in current day. Anyway, if you play the Pain side, target player discards a card from their hand. If you pay the Suffering card side, destroy target land. Phantasmal Terrain, reprinted many times, or I should say a few times, for 2 blue. Phantasmal Terrain comes into play, choose a basic land type. Enchanted land is the land of the chosen type. Phyrexian Altar. For 3 mana, sacrifice a creature at any time to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Your life was meaningless, but your death will glorify Yawgmoth. Sabotvok has another Metatron soldier. I think she took out his eye. Like I said, she is savoring the torture and the execution. Oh, there's Sam in the YouTube chat herself. You know what? I got to. She is lurking with the little kitty in the box. Thanks for the lurk, Sam. Phyrexian Battleflies. 0/1 flying insect. Are they Phyrexian insects? Yes, they are. I would assume so since they got Phyrexian in their name now. Best lurk, 10 out of 10. Sam's a lurker. The best lurker that has ever lurked this side of the stream. Pay a black. Phyrexian Battleflies gets power +1 until end of turn. You can only use this ability no more than twice each turn, so at best it can become a 2/1 with flying. After encountering them, Squee finally lost his appetite for bugs. See these little things scratching. They are a nuisance as this Llanowar elf is trying to scrape them off her body with her sword. Manticore coming soon. Phyrexian Delver, 5 mana 3/2 zombie. Phyrexian zombie. When Phyrexian Delver comes into play, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to that card's mana cost. You gotta be careful on how large the creature that's coming out. Yeah, the Manticore you speak of, if it's the Flailing Manticore, that was Mercadian Mask. If it's the Urza's Destiny, I think you're referring to the Manticore that that has regeneration and you pay mana to deal damage to a creature. A really powerful Manticore. Phyrexian Infiltrator. 3 mana 2/2 Phyrexian minion. Paid 2 blue and 2. Exchange control of Phyrexian Infiltrator and target creatures, so you pretty much swap them. It is Yawgmoth's Will incarnate, an efficient machine that replaces inefficient flesh. Here in the artwork were 4 Llanowar elves, but this was a Phyrexian in disguise. And then he poofs, and then these these elves have no idea what's about to happen because this Phyrexian will be attacking them. Phyrexian Lens, tap it, pay a life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. They are using this Metatron's body and turning it into mana. There's nothing I couldn't give to achieve victory. Can you say the same? Sabo Tavok to Gerard. I like the artwork on this card, Phyrexian Reaper. He almost looks like he's playing a guitar or about to fire a rifle. 5 mana 3/3. When he comes blocked by a green creature, destroy that creature. It cannot be regenerated. So he's an okay sideboard card against green. It desires only to help others shed the itchy wet skin of life. Phyrexian Slayer, 4 mana 2/2, flying. When Phyrexian Slayer becomes blocked by a white creature, destroy that creature cannot be regenerated. Benalia was the only First Nation victimized by Sabo Tavok's specialized killers. He's got a rip saw for a 4th digit and a machete for his right hand. I love the elongated jaw. Reminds me of Xenomorph Aliens. I do like the artwork on this card. But Croesus is still my favorite dragon and card in the set. Pincher Spider, or Pincer Spider, more exact. By itself, it's a 2 mana or 3 mana 2/3 spider that can block creatures with flying. If you pay the kicker cost, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So that means for 6 mana, you get a 3/4 with reach. Not worth it. And once again, in the spider's cocoony, not cocoon, but the spider wrapped a Phyrexian in its silk, and it has the invasion logo on its prey sack, for lack of a better word. Plague Spitter. These things look ugly. 3 mana 2/2 Phyrexian Horror. At the beginning of your upkeep, Plague Spitter deals 1 damage to all creatures and players. When Plague Spitter dies, it deals 1 damage to all creatures and players. Definitely annoying to have on the battlefield. I don't even think that was a word, Flobo. Plague Spores for 6 mana, destroy target non-black creature and target land. They cannot be regenerated. Breathe Deep, Dominaria. Breathe deep and die. Sabo Tavok, the Phyrexian General. So when the ground troops weren't really, Phyrexians realized their ground troops were being pushed back by the Kavu, by the Metatron, by the rest of the Dominarian habits, they switched to airstrikes, and they dropped bombs that pretty much caused the Phyrexian Plague, which was accelerated, delirium, fever, skin rot, necrosis, and then ultimately death. That's what happened to Hannah, Baron's daughter and Gerard's love interest. It's a tragedy to be the hero. Story is important. It was a combination. I know I've said this in many streams, and it might sound like a broken record, but that's what got me into Magic. Part artwork, part that the cards told a story, that there was a storyline behind the entire game. Here's some plains with a beautiful field of wheat, or just some sort of plant that looks like wheat. I'm not a farmer. But I would like to run my fingers through those plains. This plains is more of a meadow with like some wind eroded rocks. These plains are more tall grass, and we see a big tree in the background. That's pretty cool. Some bushes. And unfortunately, this plains looks like a war is actually going on. And we see mountains in the back room, but we see a fire blazing. This plow had to be abandoned. I guess the farmer evacuated when he saw the fires in the background. Planar Portal for 6 mana artifact. Pay 6, tap it, search your library for any card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Really powerful artifact to have. The sky split and the air crackled and roiled. The Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria had finally begun, and we can see the Phyrexian airships passing through. Pledge of Loyalty for 2 mana. Enchanted creature has protection from the colors of permanents you control. This effect does not remove Pledge of Loyalty itself. Urza convinced many Dominarians not only to set aside their differences, but to embrace them. Pouncing Kavu. It's a 1/1 with first strike for 2. If you pay the kicker cost, which is 3, it comes into play with 2+1/+1 counters and has haste. So for a total of 5 mana, you get a 3/3 with first strike and haste. Not bad. God, I cannot stand Phyrexian Portal. That card is so good when it's used against me in Arena Flobo. I almost always have to scoop unless I have an answer to... If I have an immediate answer to Phyrexian Portal, then otherwise I scoop when I see that enter the battlefield. Power Armor. Pay 3, tap it. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each basic land type among lands that you control. Great Peril demands formidable weaponry. This Power Armor ended up being Urza's personal mech. And I believe in the next set of Planeshift, Urza actually has a team of other Planeswalkers, and they assault Phyrexia on their home turf. But we'll see that later on. Prison Barricade. It's a wall for 2 mana for a 1/3 wall. If you pay the kicker cost, Prison Barricade comes into play with a +1/+1 counter, and it can attack as though it wasn't a wall. So for 4 mana, you get a 2/4. That's not good. Probe. Sabo really likes killing these Metatron. This is like the 5th card that we've seen Sabo executing or torturing a Metatron. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards from your hand. If you pay the kicker cost, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. Oh, wow. So for 5 mana, you get to draw 3 and then discard 2. And then your opponent has to discard 2 cards from their hand. That's actually pretty good. Flobo confirmed that, yes, Urza does take his team to go into Phyrexia in the next set. But some stuff happens. Prohibit. Counter target spell if its converted mana cost is 2 or less. If you paid the kicker cost, counter that spell if it's 4 or less instead. I'm not really sure what's going on in the artwork. I don't know why this guy's hair is on fire. I don't know if this is like a djinn of some sort trying to do something against this Metatron, but the Metatron countered his spell. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Yes, Sam, this is one of the reasons why I actually am doing these streams. I do want people who aren't familiar with the story or the game itself. Either this would entice people to want to try out the game themselves, or just for entertainment value, like we're doing here. It's okay, Flobo. I know what you're saying. Egocentric, I think was the word you're looking for. Everybody likes attention at sometimes. Sometimes at their own. I should say at their own leisure. Protective Spear. Pay 1 life. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn by a sorcerer choice that shares a color with the mana spent on this activation cost. I don't know why anyone would ever use this over all the other circles of protection. Psychic Battle. 5 mana enchantment. When a player chooses 1 or more targets, each player reveals the top card of his or her library. The player who reveals the card with the highest mana cost gets to choose the target and change it. If 2 or more cards are tied for the highest cost, the target remains unchanged. Pulse of Llanowar. If a basic land you control is tapped for mana, it produces mana of any one color instead of its normal type. Gaia's memory is eternal, and she exists in all things. Malimo, the Marrow Sorcerer. We have some elves doing some bongos. Pure Reflection. This elf is caressing this Kavu's face. I don't know what it has to do with the Silver Surfer he has in his palm. Artwork is wild sometimes. Whenever a player plays a creature spell, destroy all reflections. Then that player puts a white reflection creature token into play with power and toughness each equal to the converted mana cost of that spell. So the person who played the last creature gets to have a copy or a reflection creature that's power toughness equal to the mana cost of the creature. But every time a new creature is played, the old reflection dies and a new one enters the battlefield. This card's a headache. That's all I gotta say. Pyre Zombie. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Pyre Zombie is in your graveyard, you may pay 2 black and a colorless. If you do, return him to your hand. You can pay 2 red and a colorless to sacrifice him to deal 2 damage to any target. He was a decent card back in the day for black-red. Quirion Elves. As Quirion Elves comes into play, you get to choose a color. They can either tap for a green or they tap for another mana of your chosen color. These were my favorite. This is actually, I believe, reprinted from Mirage or Visions. But these were my favorite mana-making elves when I was starting to play the game. Quirion Sentinel. When Quirion Sentinel comes into play, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is a one-time using elf. All elven kind stood against Phyrexia. The Quirion nation deployed its most spiritual adepts who wielded the power of their native soil. Quirion Trailblazer. When Quirion Trailblazer comes into play, you may search your library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. If you do, shuffle your library. All that matters is the path ahead. She cost 1 mana too much for my taste. Rage Weaver. Target black or green creature gains haste until end of turn for 2 mana. Let my passion spur your victory. Here we have this wizard. He looks like he's holding a red string from a shoe, but I know this is like magic lightning traveling through his hands. These Kavu look pretty cool though. Speaking of Kavu, here's Raging Kavu. 3 mana for a 3/1 haste that you could play at any time. So he has flash. It took Yavimaya 1,000 years to breed them, but it only took seconds for them to prove their worth. And this Kavu is about to rage. Rainbow Crow. I forgot about this bird. 4 mana 2/2 flying. You can pay a colorless. Rainbow Crow becomes the color of your choice until end of turn. Children claim no 2 feathers are exactly the same color, then eagerly gather them for proof. Rampant Elephant. 4 mana 2/2. Pay a green. Target creature blocks Rampant Elephant this turn if able. No matter how righteous the cause, it helps to bring along some muscle. And some Phyrexians are getting stomped. I wish the elephant was stronger than just a 2/2. I think it at least should have been a 3/3 like the trained Armadons. Old World Micmac. Hello, welcome in. How are you doing? I love this artwork. It's probably my favorite artwork for Ravenous Rats. When Ravenous Rats comes in play, target opponent discards a card from his or her hand. Ravenous Rats gets reprinted a lot throughout Magic's history. Nothing is sacred to the rats. Everything is simply another meal. There are more rats in the background with their cliche eyes in the darkness. Good to be here, brother. Razorfoot Griffin. 4 mana for a 2/2 flying for a strike. In our point of view, we're about to be dive bombed by this griffin. Do griffins fight to defend their homes or purely for sport? For those of you who play Ark, griffins are a pain to tame. Unless you build a trap. Reckless Assault. Pay 1, Pay 2 life. Deal 1 damage to any target. How will you fight an enemy that cares nothing for itself? And there's Phyrexian ground troops here, and this airship blasted whatever settlement was here, and they're taking out their own troops in the process. They don't care about their friends. Phyrexians have no friends. They just want to get the job done. Reckless Spite. For 3 mana, destroy 2 target non-black creatures. You lose 5 life. Death is such an exquisite sensation. Sabo Tavok, the Phyrexian general, having an orgasm over killing people. In the artwork, it shows this giant Phyrexian having 2 elves in its grasp, and I assume he's just going to crush them. This is a funny card. Recoil. Return target permanent to its owner's hand, then that player discards a card. If that player doesn't have any cards in their hand when you cast this card, then you're forcing them to discard the creature or the permanent that's being returned to their hand. Anything sent into a plagued world is bound to come back infected. Recover. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Draw a card. As Baron exhumed his daughter's body, he finally realized the full price of his faith in Urza. It's the poor body of Hannah. Repulse. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. You aren't invited, is the flavor text. There's 2 drakes flying, but this one got sent back. What did this drake ever do to that person shooting the liquid lightning bolt? Restock. Return 2 target cards from your graveyard to your hand. Then remove restock from the game. We hid such stockpiles all over Wrath. We should continue that practice here. Here, Lyn Civi, the leader of the rebels, is helping arm the elves and soldiers that Eladamri has also gathered together. Restrain. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by a target attacking creature this turn. Draw a card. Hannah would give up her own life before she'd abandon the Weatherlight. And that's exactly what happened. Reviving Dose. Instant. Gain 3 life. Draw a card. As healers battled each plague, they learned more about the next. Reviving Vapors. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand. You gain life equal to the card's converted mana cost. Put the other cards revealed in this way into your graveyard. Here, Orim, the Samite healer, is healing a patient. Rewards of Diversity. Whenever an opponent plays a multicolored spell, you gain 4 life. I've never seen this card. Everything is in place. Nothing can happen that isn't part of my plan. Urza is very cocky, for lack of a better word. And Urza also, and this will be revealed in the next 2 sets, Urza makes decisions that kind of like the Phyrexians would make themselves. The Phyrexians don't care about their neighbor. All the Phyrexians care about is getting the job done at any cost. And Urza ends up thinking the same way. And we'll see why later on. Here's one of the most mana expensive angels in the game, but for good reason. Rhea Dawnbringer. Legendary angel with flying, 4/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. A beacon of hope for a battered army. I had her in my graveyard reanimation deck. She would be the target. She would be the number 1 target. I would get her in my graveyard by discarding her somehow, some way. I had a variety of ways to do it. And then I would revive her, so then she could revive any other creature once a turn that I threw in the graveyard. Riptide Crab. 3 mana, 1/3 crab with vigilance. When it dies, draw a card. It sleeps with its claws open. This is a crazy looking crab. Rith's Attendant. Rith is the claw of the Ur Dragon, scattering seeds of devastation. And when you sacrifice it, you add a red, green, and white to your mana pool. Of course, next up is Rith the Awakener. 6 mana, 6/6 flying dragon. When Rith the Awakener deals combat damage to a player, you may pay a green and 2 colorless. If you do choose a color, put a 1/1 sapling creature token into play for each permanent of that color. I know one of my brothers opened this card in their invasion pack, and I wanted it for so long. They did end up retiring from Magic, and I inherited their collection. So I finally was able to own this dragon. And one of the main reasons why I really wanted it was I was collecting every dragon card in Magic's existence up to a certain point in my life. And Rith was the only dragon I was missing from the invasion block. I had all the other 4 legendary dragons, but I needed Rith, and my brother was the only one who had it. So I eventually got it and was able to complete my collection of the invasion dragons. Rogue Kavu, 1/1. When Rogue Kavu attacks alone, it gets +2 power until end of turn. I know how this one feels, said Urza. It's not like the others. It's not like the others of its kind and has been shunned for its differences. Poor Urza. Rooting Kavu, 4 mana for 4/3. When Rooting Kavu dies, you may exile it from the game. If you do, shuffle all creature cards from your graveyard back into your library. Gosh, this Kavu looks kind of weird. He's got like a spiky sombrero for shoulder blades and his hat. Route. You can play Route anytime you can play an instant. If you cost 2 more to cast it, destroy all creatures. They cannot be regenerated. Here, Sabo Tavok has attacked the Benalia Castle. Phyrexians are attacking these townsfolk as they're trying to escape with their lives. This looks like Voldemort right here. This guy isn't human. He might be Veldikin. But anyway, these townspeople are not having a good time as they're trying to flee the castle that's literally on fire. Ruby Leech probably has the most ridiculous face out of any creature in Magic. 2 mana for a 2/2 with first strike. That's pretty good. 2 mana 2/2 first strike is good. Red spells you cast cost a green or a red more to cast. Its gems don't stop pulsating until they were completely removed. This is probably the best leech of the 5. Ruham Jin, the white Jin with the, if they're the common color, they get -2/-2. He has first strike. Sabertooth Nashoba. This is where green and white shine again in this set. It's a 5/5 cat beast warrior. Oh, that fills 3 creature types. It has trample and protection from red and blue. They sneer at the terrestrial dangers found on the peaks and shores, eager to prove themselves against new and even mightier foes. And he has a sea serpent in his grasp. Salt Marsh. Kind of looks like the Everglades. Taps for a black or a blue, and it comes into play tap. Only death breeds in stagnant water, Urborg's saying. I just noticed there's a skeleton in the water here. I never knew that before. Semi-Archer, 3 mana 1/1 cleric. You can tap her to prevent 1 damage to a creature or player, or you can tap her to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. I can preserve 10 lives by taking 1. It's the most defensive healer ever. Samite Ministration. Prevent all damage that will be dealt by a source of your choice this turn. If that source was black or red, you gain life equal to that damage. Sapphire Leech. 2/2 for 2 flying. Blue spells you cast cost an additional blue to cast. The subject's wings are clearly vestigial. We suspect the gems somehow keep it aloft. I guess it's okay. Saproling Infestation. Whenever a player pays a kicker cost, you get a 1/1 green Saproling token. My army took centuries to gather, remarked Urza. Yavimaya seemed to conjure hers out of thin air. Here's Maltani, and they got the invasion symbol on this tree trunk yet again. Saproling Symbiosis. You can play this anytime you can pay an instant if you pay 2 mana more. Put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token into play for each creature you control. really good in Saproling decks because Saprolings swarm. Elves swarm, so that's decent. Savage offense. Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. If you pay the kicker cost, they get +1/+1 until end of turn. Fortunately, it's not an instant, so you can only really use this card offensively. And are we a Phyrexian? Because this elf looks like he's ready to stab us. Scarred Puma. Scarred Puma can't attack unless a black or green creature also attacks. He's a 2/1 for 1 red. It's not eager to lose the other eye. Poor kitty. Scavenged Weaponry. When it comes into play, draw a card. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. Phyrexians have progressed, admired Urza. Their parts are interchangeable. Scorching Lava. Scorching Lava deals 2 damage to target creature or player. If you paid the kicker cost, that creature can't be regenerated this turn, and if it would be put into the graveyard, it is removed from the game instead. Here we have the defense grid on a walking ship, melting a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Scouting Trek. Search your library for any number of basic lands, reveal them, and set them aside. Shuffle your library, then put all those cards on top in any order. If you wanted to, you could get all the lands from your deck and put them on top of your library, guaranteeing that you would draw a land for however many amount of turns. I have chosen my path. Who will walk it with me? This would go great with that one fairly new elemental. I forgot what it's called. But when it enters the battlefield, you get to put a land from your hand into play and draw a card. You could repeat that process as many times. So you would draw a land, put it into play from your hand, draw a card, and then you would draw every land in your deck. And then afterwards, you could draw whatever you wanted. I think it had power toughness equal to the number of lands you control too. Searing Rays. Choose a color. Searing Rays deals damage to each player equal to the number of creatures of that color that player controls. This is a battle of pawns for the highest stakes imaginable. Urza's mechs fighting off some Phyrexian skyships. Seashell cameo. Today a seashell fell from the empty sky here in Kinmenyu, 100 leagues from the sea. I'm torn. Shall I carve a woman or a bird? And this artifact taps for a white or a blue. Seer's Vision. All opponents play with their hands revealed. Sacrifice Seer's Vision, look at target player's hand and choose a card from it. That player must discard the card. You could only play this ability on your turn as a sorcery. And this is Urza, pretending to be a blind seer. Serpentine Kavu. 5 mana, 4/4. Pay already, gains haste until end of turn. Under Yavimai's peaceful facade beats the hearts of many savage beasts. And savage it looks indeed. Shackles. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its control's untap step. Pay a white, return Shackles to its owner's hand. This is reprinted. It could be worse, said Gerard, looking around. Well, maybe not. Shimmering Wings. This is also reprinted. Enchanted creature gets flying. Pay a blue, return Shimmering Wings to its owner's hand. Wings are but fins for swimming in the sky. Empress Galena. Shivan Emissary, 3 mana, 1/1 wizard with a kicker of 2. When Shivan Emissary comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, destroy target non-black creature, cannot be regenerated. 5 mana for a 1/1 destroy target creature. Not so good. Oh, non-black creature, that makes it even worse. Shivan Harvest. Pay 2, sacrifice a creature, destroy target non-basic land. This was a really good card because there were a lot of non-basic lands being used for 2-colored plus decks. The blood of your ancestors ran heavy on this soil. Now it's your turn to sacrifice for the glory of Sheev, Vishnu Heretic. And unfortunately, this goblin's going to get chopped in half. Shivan Oasis. Only the hardiest explorers survive to eat the fruit. And we have a forest full of fruits in an otherwise barren mountainscape. Shivan Zombie. 2/2 protection from white for black and red. Barbarians long for a glorious death in battle. Phyrexia was eager to grant them their wish. We can see that this former barbarian has the spinal implant in him. It took over, came out of his mouth. It's pulling his skull back, and he has the spiky spine. Shoreline Raider. 3 mana 2/2 merfolk with protection from Kavu. This strange new beast makes for an excellent meal. Get me more, Empress Galena. He's a muscular merfolk being able to drown a 6-legged reptile beast, but I don't think... No, there are Kavu that swim in the water. I think they are somewhat amphibious. Simoon deals 1 damage to each creature target opponent controls. Hot Wind whipped up as if the weather itself wanted to fight the Phyrexians. Skittish Kavu. Skittish Kavu gets +1/+1 as long as no opponent controls a white or blue creature, so that would be 2 mana 2/2. Fierce when roused, this breed of Kavu is easily distracted by a strong voice or melodic tune. Here we have some toucans flying away, and the Kavu, I don't know if he's looking to eat them or he wants them to stop cawing. Skizik. Skizik was a popular creature back in Magic when Invasion was new. It's a 5/3 with trample and haste. You have to sacrifice it at the end of your turn unless you paid the kicker cost of 1 red. So you had a 4 mana 5/3 trample and haste. It's not as good as a ball lightning, but you do have the option to have it stay out on the battlefield if you paid the kicker cost. Skyweaver, 2/1 wizard. It's a Metatron wizard now. Pay 2, target white or black creature gains flying until end of turn. Let my wisdom give you wings. He hands out Red Bull. Sleeper's Robe. Enchanted creature has fear. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. I've never seen this card before. The artwork looks cool. The Phyrexian Sleeper Robes kind of give me Emperor Palpatine vibes from Star Wars. But I do like how the fire looks in the background. I assume this Phyrexian Sleeper was the cause of that with his mechanical enhancements. Slimy Kavu. 3 mana 2/2 Kavu. Tap it. Target land becomes a swamp until end of turn. Its slime liquefies the ground as efficiently as its fangs shred prey. Slinking Serpent. 4 mana for a 2/3 serpent with Forest Walk. It winds its way through the undergrowth as easily as it swims through the shallows. So I can't really tell what the serpent is swimming through, because I see trees here, but I don't know, because it looks like it's coming out of water, so I'm confused. Because I don't know if it's trying to go through the treetops, as the flavor text says, and it has Forest Walk. But like I said, this looks more like an ocean, like water that is coming out. Tree foliage doesn't amass like this when something's like ruptured through. Anyway, I'm picking at the artwork too much. The card's not that great. Smoldering Tar. At the beginning of your upkeep, target player loses 1 life. Smoldering Tar, you can sacrifice it to deal 4 damage to target creature. A good control card. Soulborn. Soulburn. Pay X, a black and 2. You can only spend black or red mana on X. Soulborn deals X damage. I keep saying born as if it's like a baby. Soulburn deals X damage to target creature or player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt, but not more than the amount of black mana that you spent. And X cannot be greater than the player's life total or the creature's toughness that it is being targeted with. Next up is an alternate art of Soulburn. Just the foil version. That was weird. Sparring Golem. 3 mana for a 2/2. When Sparring Golem becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature blocking it. So it becomes blocked. It's 3 mana, 3/3 at least. Part drill sergeant, part training dummy, thought Gerard. I hope it can stand up in a real war. This thing just looks like a mishmash of pain. Spinal embrace. Here's the aforementioned spinal implant. You can only play it during combat. Untap target creature you do not control and gain control of it. It gains haste until end of turn. At the end of turn, sacrifice it. If you do, gain life equal to the creature's toughness. But it does cost 6. But it was a good creature removal and temporary use of it against your opponent. Spirit of Resistance. If you control a permanent of each color, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. I forgot about this card. Sam Wilkinson says either it's hot or fire for the burn that when I was talking about Soul Burn. Our victory must come from all of Dominaria, or it will not come. Quote from Urza. Spirit Weaver. It's 2/1 wizard. Pay 2. Target green or blue creature gets +1 toughness until end of turn. Let my hope be your shield. Spite and Malice is another 2-sided card. You can play Spite to counter target non-creature spell, or Malice to destroy target non-black creature. It cannot be regenerated. On the left, we have Teferi. On the right, we have a Metatron soldier falling to his death. Spreading Plague. 5 mana, black enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, destroy all other creatures that share a color with it. They cannot be regenerated. The cruelest strain of plague keeps its host alive long enough to return home and infect their families. That's such a dark flavored text. I got confirmation on Sam Wilkinson's burn. Feel the burn. Stalking Assassin. Ugh, I don't even know what is on his head. Pay a blue and 3, tap him, tap target creature. Pay a black and 3, destroy target tap creature. He is a very poorly reincarnated royal assassin. Another 2 sides, stand and deliver. For stand, prevent the next 2 damage that will be dealt to target creature this turn. For deliver, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Stand or fall. At the beginning of your combat phase, separate all creatures defending player controls into 2 piles. Only 1 pile may block this turn. In this artwork, we have the goblins and the Biashino, who are normally fighting over each other. They had to band together against the Phyrexians. This one's got pots and pans for armor, and some goblins look terrified, but what are they going to do? They're going to get annihilated if they don't defend themselves either way. Sterling Grove. All other enchantments you control cannot be the target of spells or abilities. Pay 1, sacrifice the Sterling Grove, search your library for an enchantment card, and reveal it. Shuffle your library, and then put your card on top of it. If your deck relies on enchantments, Sterling Grove is a much-needed card to protect them or search for the one you want. Stormscape Apprentice. For 1 blue, you can pay a white to tap target creature, or you can pay a black and tap it. Target player loses 1 life. I think this is the best apprentice. Both these abilities are useful. Here's the Stormscape Master. For double white, target creature gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. For double black, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Strength of Unity. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each basic type among lands you control. All Dominarians agreed on one thing. They would not go down without a fight. Next up is Stun. Target creature can't block this turn, and you get to draw a card. They certainly are well protected. Too bad for them, they're not well balanced. And Sisay's fighting this Phyrexian. About to trip his top-heavy ass. Sulam Jin. It's the green Jin, 6 mana, 6/6 trample with the -2/2 drawback. Sulfur Vent comes into play tap. Tap it for a black, or you could sacrifice it for a red or blue until end of turn. Sunscape Apprentice, 1/1. Is it an angel wizard? No, it's a human wizard. She got angel wings for crying. Oh no, wait, never mind. There's a bird behind her. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for a green, or you can pay a blue to put target creature you control on top of your library. The Sunscape Master, double green, creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Double blue, return target creature to its owner's hand. Are these guys naked or something? One guy's covered in like branches. He just reminds me of like Adam from Adam and Eve. The other guy on the right is looked like he tried to take a shower and all the water froze on him. But the Sunscape Master here thinking they're doing a good deed or something. I don't know. Here's a swamp from my favorite magic artist, Ron Spencer. You see the bubbling muck. There is a lizard just chilling down here, as well as I don't know if it's a rat. I assume it's a rat and not a possum. Probably one of my favorite swamps in the game. Shout out to Ron Spencer. This swamp is more foresty-like. We got a big tree here with some other trees in the background and some fog rolling over the ground. We've got another swamp just like the one I showed earlier. This one's got moss and trees of tangling trunks and roots. And Ron Spencer has another swamp with more bubbling muck. I see some rats or some creatures are hiding in this hollow tree trunk. He got some mushrooms growing on the sides here. I think there's more creatures here underneath the roots. That's like one thing I love about Ron Spencer, all his attention to detail. Sway of Illusion. Any number of target creatures become the color of your choice until end of turn, and you can draw a card. I suggest you take a closer look. Tidal Visionary. Tainted Well. When it comes into play, draw a card. Enchanted Land is now a swamp. No, you get the water. I'm not thirsty. Quote from Squee. This guy went to go get water, and the black doo-doo water, I guess, jumped out onto him. Tangle. Prevent all kind of damage that would be dealt this turn. Attack creatures don't untap during their controller's untap step. Gaia battles rampant death with abundant life. I don't know what's going on in this artwork. I thought that like somebody would be like tangled up in these roots, but here it just looks like the people are coming out of the roots. Tectonic Instability. Whenever a land comes into play, tap all other lands its controller controls. Think of the problems we'll face if you uproot entire continents, said Urza. I have, replied Teferi, but the alternative is worse. Teferi's Care. Pay a white, sacrifice an enchantment to destroy an enchantment, or you could pay 5 to counter an enchantment spell. If I do nothing else, I will protect my people. Teferi. Teferi's Moat. As Teferi's Moat comes into play, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color without flying cannot attack you. Isolation is not the answer. Urza to Teferi. So when the Phyrexians attack Teferi's home of Zalfur, he ends up creating a time bubble, and he traps his where'd my water go? Teferi traps his nation in a time bubble, phasing it out of existence. So the Phyrexians can't even touch him, but of course he traps all the denizens of his realm, of his nation, away from everything else. So they cease to exist. They're taken out of time for the time being. And then eventually the spell will wear off and the kingdom of Zalfur will return to reality. But Teferi dips out. He no longer is fighting the Phyrexians because he leaves with his people and they disappear. temporarily. Hey, Steve, welcome in. How are you doing? Furry's response. The story I just told you, this is exactly what he's doing. He's taking his island and taking it out of time. Counter target spell or ability an opponent controls that targets a land you control. If this ability is countered in this way, destroy that permanent, and you get to draw 2 cards. Tech. Probably the shortest Magic card name. Probably the shortest card name from every card game out there. Just 3 letters long. Tech. Tech has +2 toughness if you control a plains, flying if you have an island, +2 power if you have a swamp, first strike if you have a mountain, and trample if you control a forest. So if you have all 5 of those lands, you get a 4/4 flying first strike trample artifact dragon for 5. I guess that's okay. Well, I just got super hungry. No problem, Steve. I know you're mostly here for Smash, but I do appreciate you coming in and saying hello. Whenever a creature or land becomes tapped, put an hourglass counter on it. Permanents with an hourglass counter on them do not untap during their untap steps. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, remove all hourglass counters from permanents that player controls. And here again we have Teferi changing and bending time with his best friend Johora sitting next to him because she also leaves with him. Thicket Elemental. 4/4 for 5 Elemental. When Thicket Elemental comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature. If you do, put that card into play and then shuffle all other cards revealed in this way. Ron Spencer hits it out of the park again. I can just imagine this lumbering tumbleweed with all these several eyes walking around with some beast in its rib cage cavity, and then it'll just bring out whatever it is. It could be a 2020 big furry monster, or the 10/10 Gigantosaurus, if you're lucky by revealing it from the top. I like this card a lot. Thornscape Apprentice. Pay a white, tap it, tap target creature. Pay a red, tap it, target creature gains first strike until end of turn. Thornscape Master. Almost looks like Gandalf. Pay 2, deal 2 damage to target creature. Pay 2 white, target creature gains protection from your choice until end of turn. Thunderscape Apprentice. I like the lightning bolt in the background. Target player loses a life, or target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. The Master, I guess he's using his arms in an uncomfortable manner, and he has a belted muzzle over his face. But anyway, target player loses 2 life, or creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Tidal Visionary, summoning a shark out of this water and some minnows. Tap them, target creature becomes the color of your choice until end of turn. Beneath the waves, things appear the way merfolk want them to. One of my friends in high school, he had a merfolk deck, and he always just had a saying, "Merfolk in your face." I'll never forget that. Troy, if you ever somehow stumble across these videos, I don't know how you're doing, man, but I just shouted your high school memory out. Tiger Eye cameo. Taps for a green or a white. An elvish adventurer unearthed this stone in Jor-El's jungle. Now it's truly fit for display in one of her palaces. Tinder Farm. No, you're not going to find a date on this farm. This is for Burning Wood. Comes into play, taps for a green, tap, sacrifice for a red and a white. Talarian Emissary. Doing a backflip and hitting this Phyrexian dog with its staff. I really need something to eat after this. My stomach's growling. This thing is a 1/2 with flying. When it comes into play, if you pay the kicker cost, destroy target enchantment. Tower Drake, 3 mana for a 2/1 flying. For every white you pay, it gets toughness +1. Young Tower Drakes quickly learn to maneuver among Benalia's many spires. Tranquility is reprinted, destroy all enchantments. The plagues rob Dominaria of all but its dreams. Latimery hoped dreams were enough. Traveler's Cloak comes into play. Choose a land type. Enchanted creature has the land walk of the chosen type. When Traveler's Cloak enters the battlefield, draw a card. Treefolk Healer, 2/3 Treefolk for 5. Pay a white and 2, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. It costs too much, unfortunately, but the artwork is really good. The Phyrexian Laser Blast or some sort of meteor went to hit, and the Treefolk took the hit, is protecting. There's a Druid right here. He's easy to miss, but the Treefolk is protecting the Druid. Protected by Druids for untold centuries, the forest began to return the favor. Trenchworm. These remind me of Graboids from Tremors. 4 mana, 3/3 worm. Pay a red and 2, tap it, destroy target non-basic land. Their arrival marks the end of Yawgmoth's subtlety. Treva's Attendant. 5 mana, 3/3 golem. You can sacrifice it for a white, green, and a blue. Treva is the voice of the Ur Dragon, demanding cries of worship. And here's Treva the Renewer, a very angelic looking dragon. When Treva deals damage to a player, you may pay a white and 2. If you do choose a color, you gain 1 life for each card in play of the chosen color. Tribal Flames. Tribal Flames deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of basic land types among lands that you control. These Phyrexians are getting fried. Fire is a universal language. Johor the Master Artificer. Trollhorn cameo. I found a Trollhorn fragment in the wooded foothills of Hurloon, and it keeps growing larger. I wonder, is the horn recreating itself or the troll? And it taps for a red or a green. Donato Giancola makes some great close-ups of hands and jewelry and artifact artwork. Tsabo's Assassin, 4 mana, 1/1 assassin, Phyrexian Assassin. Tap it, destroy target creature if it shares the most common color of all cards onto the battlefield. A creature destroyed this way cannot be regenerated. This is one of the better assassins. I like he has vials of Phyrexian contagion all over his body. Really foreboding, cool looking creature. Tsabo's Decree. Choose a creature type. Target player reveals his or her hand and discards all creatures of the chosen type from it. Then destroy all creatures of that type that player controls. They cannot be regenerated. This shuts down creature-themed decks hardcore. And Sabo Tavak is up here in the artwork, ordering the execution of these elves. Sabo's Web. When Sabo's Web comes into play, draw a card. Lands with an activated ability don't produce mana. Or lands with an activated ability that don't produce mana don't untap during their control's untap step. So Tsabo, what is the main villain of the invasion set, and she wanted to kill Gerard to prove her worth to Phyrexia. Gerard bested her in battle, but she did order the assault, which ended up having Hannah get killed, and then I guess this was one of the Metatron. I think it was the Metatron general that ended up getting captured by her, and she lobotomized him and read his mind and was able to find out information about what Urza was doing. Here's the card herself, Sabo Tavak. She has a metallic spider-like body, 2 pairs of arms. She holds 2 staffs, and she delights in killing. 5, 6, 7 mana, 7/4. She's a first strike. She's also has protection from other legends. Pay 2 black and tap her to destroy target legendary card. It cannot be regenerated. I almost pity my enemies if it wasn't so amusing to watch them die. She was one of the first cards that I think she was my first rare that I opened in my first pack of Invasion. Turf Wound. Target player can't play land cards this turn. Draw a card. I can't imagine how anyone lives in Sheev, let alone why they choose to stay. Twilight's Call. This is one of my favorite graveyard recursion spells. You can play it as an instant if you pay 2 mana or more. Each player returns all creature cards from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. Fortunately, it helps your opponent too. Twilight Falls, We Rise, the Necropolis Inscription. So the Keldons wanted to... the Keldons had a huge necropolis where they buried their dead. The Phyrexians knew about it, and they ended up stealing a lot of the corpses, adding to their undead force. Undermine. The first card we revealed was Absorb. Undermine is like the opposite of it, with 2 blue and a black. Counter target spell, its controller loses 3 life instead of you gaining 3 life. Which would you like first, the insult or the injury? Imagine you're fighting and somebody just takes an entire funnel of swamp water and douses you with it. Urborg Drake, 3 mana for a 2/3 flying. It has to attack each turn if able. Relentless as a sea, remorseless as death. It's okay. Urborg Emissary. An Urborg Emissary comes into play if you pay the kicker cost, return target permanent to its owner's hand. So you would have to pay 5 total for a 3/1 to do that. It's okay. Urborg Phantom, 3 mana for a 3/1 that can't block. Is it a Phantom Spirit? Yes, it is. Spirit minion, I should say. Pay a blue, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by the Urborg Phantom this turn. A Chilling Fog with Teeth of Ice. Urborg Shambler, 4 mana for a 4/3 horror. All other black creatures get -1/-1. A Writhing Mass of Rot with sharp claws and a vicious spirit. This thing does look like a nightmarish. I won't ever want to run into this. The card itself, risky to use, but if you're using it by itself, it's alright. Urborg Skeleton, a 0/1 skeleton for 1 black with regeneration. If you pay the kicker cost, it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter. So that would be 4 mana for a 1/2 with regeneration. He also has the invasion symbol on his shin. We're almost done. I do believe we have 2 more pages left. Oh, I never knew there was another Urborg skeleton here. This looks nothing like a skeleton, though. There he is again. Urborg Volcano. Land that comes into play tapped, and it can add for a black or a red. Deep in the heart of Urborg lie massive volcanoes whose thick black smoke covers the land with perpetual darkness. Urza's Filter. Multicolored spells cost up to 2 less to play. It's a tool for aiding my other tools, explained Urza. Now they'll all work in harmony. This is good for really expensive multicolored spells, like Coalition Victory for 1, Niv Mizzet. Urza's Rage. This card saw some tournament play. Urza's Rage cannot be countered by spells or abilities. Urza's Rage does 3 damage to target creature or player. If you pay the kicker cost, Urza's Rage deals 10 damage to that creature or player instead, and the damage cannot be regenerated. But the kicker cost is 9. So you would have to pay a total of 12 mana to do 10 damage. That's a lot. Utopia Tree, 0/2 tree that taps for 1 mana of any color. The fruit of this fabled tree takes on the flavor of whatever food you love the most. So if I love cheeseburgers, I pluck one thing off this tree and it's I take the cheeseburger fruit off the tree or pizza tree. Vertaloth the Ancient. This is a popular commander card among Tree Folk and Saproling users. For 6 mana, it's a 4/7 legendary Tree Folk. He has Kicker of X. All other Tree Folk and Saproling get +1/+1. Whenever Vertaloth the Ancient comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, put X 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens onto the battlefield. Verdarin Emissary, 3 mana for a 2/3 with kicker. When she comes into play, if you pay the kicker cost, destroy an artifact. It can't be regenerated. Bioshuno Grappler, 3 mana, 3/1. Pay a green. He gains trample until end of turn. They've returned for the mana rig, but it no longer belongs to them. The Bioshuno Bay. Spear! Vicious Kavu. This is the artwork on this was I like this Kavu a lot. 3 mana 2/2. When Vicious Kavu attacks, it gets +2 power until end of turn, making him a 4/2. As battle raged in Sheev, a strange new ally appeared from below, ravaged the ground. From below the ravaged ground. This Kavu is so vicious, he's tearing up a scarecrow. And the scarecrow's got a frown. That's funny. Got a frown, but no brain. Vigorous Charge. Oh, this looks like the same Kavu that was being caressed earlier. Target creature gains trample until end of turn. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, if you pay the kicker cost, you gain life equal to the damage. It's okay. Vile Consumption. 3 mana. All creatures have at the beginning of your upkeep sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1 life. The plague moved faster than an army and was far more deadly. You can see rows of denizens that are contaminated with the plague. They got lesions on their skin, suffering from delirium. I guess this guy's dead because he's got a blanket over his head, and I think there's blood over his mouth. Yeah, I think he's gone. Vodalian Hypnotist, 2 mana Merfolk for 1/1, pay a black and tap it. Target player discards a card from their hand. You can only play this during your turn. Deceit is a Heart of War. Vodalian Merchant, he's offering us this Sea Dagger. When Vodalian Merchant comes into play, draw a card, then discard a card from your hand. Not choosing sides in a war can be dangerous, but lucrative. Vodalian Serpent, 4 mana 2/2 Sea Serpent. It cannot attack unless the defending player controls an island. If you pay the kicker cost, he comes into play with 4 +1/+1 counters. So 6 mana 6/6. Still can't attack unless the opponent has an island. I guess the ship's in trouble. Vodalian Zombie. Merfolk Zombie for 2. Protection from green, black, blue. It's a black blue creature with protection from green. Every last one of you will become my servant. It's a shame you won't live to see the irony. Sabo Tavak, the Phyrexian general. And I don't even know. Looks like the zombie merfolk's having trouble staying able to swim because it looks like he's just floating belly up. Void for 5. Choose a number. Destroy all artifacts and creatures with mana cost equal to that number. Then that player reveals their hand and discards all non-land cards with that converted mana cost number as well. Artwork shows somewhat Urza in one of his mana rig mana machines. Power suits. Power armor. That's the correct word. Power armor. Firing random razor blasts at the Phyrexians. Voracious Cobra. 4 mana 2/2 with first strike. When it deals counter damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So because it has first strike, it is going to deal damage to the creature, killing it no matter what. And the Cobra is going to survive. There's no known antidote for the Cobra's venom or its appetite. And it looks like it killed a Kavu. I think this Cobra would have to be really big unless this is a baby Kavu. Wallop. Destroy target blue or black creature with flying. In Yavimaya, flying low to join a battle can be a costly mistake. And this tree is going to just pancake this Metatron transport with his giant limbs. Tree limbs. I'm so funny. Wandering Stream. You gain 2 life for each basic land types among lands you control. Dominaria touches us all. That's pretty invasive, Malima. The artwork's beautiful, though. Now we are on the final page. Wash out. Return all permanents of the color of your choice to their owner's hand. Rest now. You've neither won nor lost, but this battle is over for you just the same. And these Kavu are being sent back to where they came from. Really powerful bounce card. Wax and Wane. If you cast Wax, target creature gets +2/+2 into end of turn. If you cast Wane, destroy target enchantment. Wayfaring Giant. Wayfaring Giant gets +1/+1 for each basic land type among lands you control. Its stature and stride increase with each step it takes. And he is plowing a... I was going to say thick log, but he's just got a battering ram through these Metatron soldiers. The highest he can be is +5/+5, which would make him a 6/8 for 6. So that's the only good time to use him if you have 5 lands out. Well-laid plans. I've never seen this card. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to a creature by another creature if they share a color. So if your creature's blue and they take damage from a blue, that damage is prevented. I knew this day would come, said Urza, looking at the destruction. No, I knew this day would come, said Urza. Looking at the destruction, Baron sighed. You don't have to revel in it. Again, we've seen Baron lost his daughter, Baron lost his wife, lost his home. And Urza doesn't seem to care. Urza just wants to get the job done. Whip Silk. Enchanted creature may block as though it had flying. Pay a green, return Whip Silk to its owner's hand. Llanowar forges weapons of steel. Yavimaya grows her weapons within. Wings of Hope. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3 and flying for 2. Urza knew Phyrexia would come through the air and sent his soldiers to greet them. Winnow. For 2, destroy target non-land permanent. If another permanent with the same name is in play as it, draw a card. Strength in numbers? I think not. And Gerard's pulling a Three Stooges maneuver by bonking 2 heads together. Whoop, 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 whoop. Worldly Council. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put 1 in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Yavimaya Barbarian. This guy's very much alive. A green and a red. 2/2 with protection from blue. He's a barbarian elf. Not all elves embrace the pastoral life. Some still roam the forest's edge, forever making war against their hated enemies. Yavimaya Kavu. The Yavimaya Kavu's power is equal to the number of red creatures in play, while its toughness is equal to the number of green creatures in play. If it's out on its own, it will be a 1/1 because it does count as a red and green creature. Kavu hunt prey in packs. 1 Kavu hunts a pack of prey. And you can see the mother Kavu and her babies. I guess the Kavu is giving birth to it. I don't know if they're producing asexually because it looks like they're just coming out of her skin. Yawgmoth's Agenda. For 5 mana enchantment, you can only play 1 spell a turn. You can play cards from your graveyard as though they were in your hand. If a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, it is put into the graveyard, or it is removed from the game instead. And it's showing Sabo Tavok telepathically communicating with Yawgmoth, gathering her orders, and reporting the Dominarian invasion back to Phyrexia. Zanum Djinn, the blue Djinn, with the drawback of being the most common color, zapping some merfolk. And I didn't know this was the next card, but Zap shows the Weatherlight shooting a Phyrexian airship. Deals 1 damage to any target, draw a card. All this time I thought Squee was useless, chuckled Sisay. Who knew he'd be such a good shot? And Zap was the last card of the Urza block. So we're going to go back all the way to Croesus to unfortunately close tonight's stream. I should just type it in, but we're almost there. So which cards were your favorite? Which ones did you like? Which ones did you use if you played during Invasion? Here's Croesus the Purger, my favorite card in the set. This was the year 2000, and I was now a sophomore, or getting ready to be a sophomore. And I stopped buying cards up to this point. Invasion was the last set I had purchased. I didn't purchase any Plane Chase. I didn't purchase any Apocalypse. I would later on get back into Magic a couple of years after that. Then I would have to backtrack all the sets that I had missed at the time. So until then, we will keep the Invasion going. Next week, I will be doing 2 Magic streams, one on Friday, one on a Saturday, unless something else comes up. I will be going through the Plane Shift and Apocalypse sets. So until then, I hope you have a good Friday night, or whatever night it is when you watch this video. Take care, and I'll see you next week.